Hey, all right, we're back. Part two. Uh, I thought I should mention at the beginning of this video too because I did in the last one. I am hosting an event next week, 21st of May, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Monthly Montreal Comic Jam special edition for FBDM MCAF, part of CanCAF, which is basically all of the festivals that were supposed to be happening in various places physically. Are now happening virtually to some extent. Excuse me. FBDM, I was going to be tabling at which I had planned to launch Mind Engine, but that has been postponed. Is now online, and I'm doing two things for it. I'm hosting the Comic Jam, and I've also got a talk. Look for the description text information link there. I'm going to look at Dave McKean and Fabrice Neo, Cages and Journal Trois. There's a sequence in them that bear striking resemblance. No shade meant by that. I've discovered there's definite elements of homage in that. And then where did I put my glasses? There they are. The work is beautiful, but it also provides us an opportunity to look at the way it's applied to actually, some very similar tools applied for different outcomes. I'll take a minute to see what I'm doing. So I've squiggled in really very lightly here with you thinking, oh yeah, you can't see what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm here for is I'm actually doing some inking, working on Crowning for Lessons. It's a sci-fi story. It will be in Mind Engine. I've got a story coming out. It's actually going to be another feature of my personal anthology as well, but it will first appear in... What's going on over there? Yeah. Okay, good. It will first appear in letters. Oh, wait a minute. Is it to or from? Damn it. FBDM's and Comics Anthology. Letters à Montreal? I forget how translates. Darn it. As I mentioned in the previous video, my French is rather poor, embarrassingly so. It's a byproduct of the before mentioned as well. Dyslexia makes it pretty hard, actually. At least for me, pick up new language. That and I don't go out a ton. So there's not a lot of conversational opportunities in my life. For the Comic Jam, it's bilingual. We're going to have at least 4 co-hosts. I'm not doing it alone. I'm the organizer, and I'll be a host. I'll be the name host. But, or I don't know what you call it. The MC? The MC. That's pretty much what it is. But I'm going to have several co-hosts I'm meeting with tomorrow to go over how to use the software. I've learned a few new tricks too. I need to update the how-to video if I can find a moment. You apparently can copy and paste between Photoshop and Aggie to a limited degree, so I need to investigate that and update my instructions accordingly. So I think this one will be the flowers coming at us in the mural over here. I talked a bit, if you're interested, I talked a bit about what this story is as much as I should, I want to give it all away. I'm going to probably be drawing a lot of it on camera, so you'll get an idea. It's 8 pages. I'm still discovering the style, but it's just going to be ink and line. Mind engine generally is going to be black and white. Some of it will be tonal work. With digital or graphite or a mix of digital graphite, ink wash, and some different techniques that I often use and mix and match to get values and shades. But I have made a commitment recently to focus on simplifying my process to tell more stories. And the main reason being, means is going to be by doing most of it is black and white art somehow, in some form, no color. Color covers and, other things occasionally, and certainly for work and gigs. Chatted yesterday with Sam Noir, co-host of the Sequential Comic Podcast. Check the featured channels listings on my personal channel here for a link to that YouTube channel. It's a new YouTube channel I started, and I'll be co-hosting the shows with Sam Noir. He's a Toronto cartoonist and children's artist and author, and also real big into the cool collectible stuff, and part of the Toronto comic scene for quite a while. We actually met. Oh, is that basically 30 years ago? And I had just started working in Marvel, and if I remember correctly, he was still a student and interviewed me. School paper or something like that, as a Toronto artist. I think that's what he told me. Yeah. I suspect I feel like I know him through the convention scene in Toronto as well. Possibly like the one, there was a big event at the CNE with Will Meisner, and I think that might have been where he interviewed me. We'll have to redo. We did a little mutual interview thing. And then I think I lost it. It was like a beta test for the Sequential Podcast. And I think I lost the files. At least I haven't been able to find them yet. Might turn up. But that's not the worst thing in the world, because there was lots of stuff we could have salvaged, but it would have taken a lot of editing. We rambled. And I think we did a great job with our interview, though. Yesterday, so first in the can, might be one of the first to air. We'll see. One of the first. It's gonna be the first batch. I'm gonna try to do. I don't know. I keep debating if I should wait longer or less. So I feel like at the very least we need to have 3 or 4 of them done before we start publishing any of them. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to have even more done. But I also don't want to wait so long. Like, it depends on how fast we're able to book and record interviews. something came up. We were talking in the interview yesterday about, I keep trying to think of like, how do I talk about this without giving away spoilers? Yes, I can say this without, I don't think so. I don't think it will be a problem. We're talking about just sort of staying focused, and there's always this, I think in our culture in general, it can be said without controversy that we become very committed to a constant growth mindset. This idea that you should always be doing more and expanding, never say no, always say yes. No. I don't know, maybe there's a time for that in your life, but on the whole, it's not a particularly sustainable way of doing things at any scale. We live in a finite world. We live finite lives. We have finite amounts of energy, including mental energy. It is a real thing. And you can drink lots of coffee, but in the end, you still gotta... only so much bandwidth. Certainly better than any computer so far, but planning stuff is intense. Takes a lot of energy. You can only do so much, and then other things. And my main calling is this thing I'm doing right now. I've enjoyed teaching quite a bit, so that I would say that's a good runner-up. I did not expect it to become such a pleasant way to make the rent, but it is, and I'm not complaining, just mildly surprised. Keep in mind I had a terrible experience in school as a kid myself, so I wasn't holding my breath, but I feel like I went into it very consciously trying to be the kind of teacher I would have liked as much as I'm capable. You have to have reasonable expectations of yourself, but I definitely try to teach the students I had, not some arbitrary course, and be candid. Learn along with them when I need to, and not be shy about it. I've learned, I think I said in another video, like I encounter a lot of tools, and I think I also said in another video, like I notice how a lot of us use our own terminology for techniques and things, and there are definitely some cases where just the wrong terms get applied, but a lot of times it's more of just a personal dialect. And it's interesting to come across correct terms, but for me personally, it was never a priority because I was more interested in the things that it's there to help describe than the name of it. Solely because I have a difficulty remembering names in the first place, so trying to remember yet more information by that particular means isn't so helpful for me. Show me the technique. Don't tell me what it's called. But that's not to say what it's called is unimportant, and for some people that really helps them maintain the information. And in which case, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to tell you all as I'm talking about different things. This, that, and other thing, and I do my best to try to hang on to that and use it when I can. But that is a relatively recent thing for me. So that is yet another way in which teaching has introduced much appreciated growth and exploration and journey and feeling of usefulness. And also, I mentioned it in my short story. I'm going to refresh the page here. The one that's going Letters of Montreal, that short story. That I talk about it feeling good that was getting to spend time around people who are just sort of at the beginning of their creative journey, and seeing when they have it. You know, an ideal, not all students start off this way, And it's kind of an important thing. You'd think it'd be obvious that students would come to a class with an open growth mindset. Groping there for the term, as I was just saying, not always my forte, but a growth mindset that, for example, relevant to my issues with remembering things like names, I'm going to warn you that I suck at it, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to try, because I know that when I make the effort, it does get better. It definitely never gets totally. It's an actual kind of like, I don't know, I'm starting to see some neuropsychologists about it soon. I've got an appointment to see what there is to do, but I know from my own study that it's limited. It's compensating and knowing it's there and working around it. That's basically what the deal is. We as of yet don't have the ability to rewire your brain. So if you're dyslexic and aphantasic and other things like that, it is what it is. I don't think of it as a disability personally, but that has more to do with just my intersection with it and how I've been able to work around it for the most part. But, honestly, there are ways in which it has actually seriously created problems. And sometimes what ends up happening is the habits you get into to compensate for something kind of backfire. And you end up developing other habits that you feel like are helping at first, but you learn later don't so much. That sounds a little ominous now that I say it out loud, and sometimes it is really, it's things like bad behaviors. A lot of writers who rely on getting a little stoned, a little plastered to do their work. And I'm going to be honest, I do rather enjoy having a slight buzz on when I do work like I am now. I often do. But I know I'm not reliant on it, and I think it's important never to lie to yourself and pretend that being wasted makes you a better creator or something. Some bullshit. That's not true. I think for me, the trick in general, and I know I can do it on my own when I need to, is just being in the moment and doing the work and not worrying and thinking about other things. There are times, though, when stuff's going on, and you just gotta work. You can't do anything about it, and you should be able to kind of draw your attention, but sometimes it helps a little bit. The tricky part is having the maturity. You still need the mental and emotional maturity to direct your attention. So if you rely on something, a glass of wine, a joint, to try to shift gears, but you don't know how to actually shift the gears, then you're going to just sort of inadvertently end up wherever you end up. That doesn't help. That's not going to help at all. I've gotten quite good through practice. That's where the meditation and stuff comes in. At consciously directing my attention. Focus. Executive control. Fortunately, I have no frontal lobe injuries. And temporal lobe, that's a big one too, I believe. At least that I know of. I actually think I had some interesting experiences as a kid. And a few rough spills and things. A little rough and tumble. Grew up free range, they call it these days. 70s, 80s kid. And I do think I probably took a few hits that these days would draw a lot more concern, maybe. But back then, weren't thought much of. Definitely had a concussion once or twice. I wonder sometimes about that, how it may have shaped how I came out, for what we know now. Okay, I need to stop and think. Don't want to fill too much in with the flowers. This light transformer is making awful noise. Can you guys see fine without it? Yeah, it's good enough. I don't want it buzzing in my ear. Did something just happen in the feed? I thought I saw a flicker. Nope, not seeing nothing. Oh, just realized their chat has a super chat function in it. I wonder if anyone will ever use that. I got a Patreon, patreon.com/salgood. Just go check that out. And if you want to read my comics, pledge. Pledge, man, pledge. Also, I have a student patron category. So that gets you a once a month meetup session. We'll look at your work. It's like the first time I want to look at some of your work and talk to you about what you're hoping to do and want to accomplish, where you're at, where you'd like to be. And then I'll make recommendations based on what I see in your work on what to study and provide a few demo examples. And then we'll meet again within a month. Well, later if you prefer, but you know, you get a monthly opportunity. And I'll look at what you're doing and give you feedback. And you can probably send me homework along the way for notes. That's an option. Patreon.com/SalGoodSam. No, just Salgood. Right. Patreon, yeah. Patreon.com/Salgood. Look at the description text. I put a link there. I thought ahead. I planned this thing. I keep seeing movement out of the corner of my eye. This is just a little distracting. That being, it's just myself, by the way. There's not something spooky about that. I have screens all around me. There was some drink and draw or some talk, some comic artist talk thing. People were talking about how, something I've said many times actually, I think. No writer, as much as artists will like bitch about, oh man, the writer gave me a battle sequence. I'm going to do a whole field full of people fighting, crowd scene, I exaggerate, but I mean there's some artists who actually love doing that stuff, so I definitely exaggerate, but that's like one of the old tropes. But in truth, you get an artist writer doing their own stuff, no one's going to ask them to do more insane stuff than themselves. They'll always over budget themselves. My thing is, I mean, and part of it is I enjoy the meditative practice of pattern work like this. But I think the trick to do there is use my fine. These are supposed to be like spackle areas. The patchwork has been done, covering over the mural. We're left to imagine what may have been patched over. Storytelling and world building, or in comics visual storytelling. And the things you're doing when you're working on your backgrounds is you're thinking, this is a place that was there before the moment that I'm depicting. What has happened there, and how do I show that? You don't have to be too specific. You can be. You can have like whole scenes that tell you very close to exactly what happened to them. Hours or days or moments before. But even just a little bit of thinking, this is a weird dark hallway, and at the end of the hallway is this insane mural that's kind of attention getting, but actually sort of in the context of where this is and what's happening in the world. A big stay away. Meant to disconcern and scare off inquisitive scavengers and the like. Yeah. For those wondering, possibly, I am working over the printed, they're not blues, but like the printed blues of this rough drawing, which I then scanned into Photoshop and did some resizing and fleshing out. Printed out and did some more fleshing out with purple color erase pencils. The purpley red ink is because my printer, of course, now of all times, when it's hard to get stuff, I think it's actually the heads, which sucks because that's something that I have a kit to clean, but really shouldn't be so easily. I like the Epson all-in-one workforce scanner printer that I got. When it's working, it does great work, and it's a good scanner, but it's also fucking fickle as shit, and they don't sell the printer heads as a unit, but their printer heads glitch out and fuck up and stop working, and it's not replaceable. This is a pretty big unit. It's actually not super insanely expensive, but it should not be that disposable. I do not approve. Had I known, I might not have bought. Just because it's made me have to work around its stubborn, difficult, finicky ass one too many times. But of course, I am not in a position to do much about it at this point. It sort of works, and it works for what I need it to do at the moment. I have uncertainties about where the next buck will come from. I've got some saved in the bank, but I can't be spending it too quickly. So I will make do. I'm going to see I've done these scurly Q thingies as a general sense of the shape that I want, but I think I want to flesh it out. How? Yeah, I don't want it in the middle. That's too clown-like. I want it to be more crown-like. So think ahead so I don't end up doing something that I'll regret. Get the design worked out. Work it out, baby. It says 4 viewers watching. Well, hello there. Hey, you know. Yeah, 31. Yeah, that's a good time to finish this again. Hey, yeah, if you're interested, whoops, not that one. This one. I have a comic jam coming up. I'm hosting a comic jam online via Zoom and Aggie for the FBDM MCAF. That's the Festival BD Montreal Comic Art Festival, as an part of the extended CanCAF events across Canada celebrating Canadian comics. You should come check it out. Check out the description text for all of the things and the links and the doobly-doos and whatever they call them. Whatchamacallits. Facebook event pages. If you don't like Facebook, I have a mailing list that I've set up on MailChimp, and you can just enter your name, and all I use it for is to mention upcoming jams and then send out the sign-up info for the night of the jam. And then you can totally stay, don't use the Facebook. That's okay, I understand. I use it still. I don't like them, what they're doing these days. It's unfortunate. It's a very mild Canadian way of putting it. It's extremely annoying, in fact. But, what are you going to do? Most people are still there. I dislike people who are complaining about politics, and they go off and start some other small thing, and it's all fucking politics and radical extreme right wing. Just kidding bullshit. Anyway, fuck it. I don't have a problem with politics. I just don't like the insincere bullshit complaining about politics. And then I definitely don't like right wing stuff. And now, before you Yanks start trying to pigeonhole me, I am not a liberal. I've never been one to join a club, because there's always going to be some element of any dogma that I disagree with. However, I do come from unabashed social anarchist roots. My father was a social anarchist, and where some days if you got him on, he would say he was a communist, but I think that was more tongue-in-cheek, because he wasn't really a fan of Stalin and all that shit. But we were definitely socialists, which is a different thing. No, not the same. Most governments that have ever claimed to be socialist have really been more totalitarian cults of personality or bullshit, fascism. But especially when it's fascism, they're decidedly not socialists. Nazis are not socialists. I don't care. It's really not why it's in the name. They used it in the name because socialism was popular at the time, and they wanted to get workers who were interested in socialism and workers' rights to sign up to the Nazi Party, back it. They knew that their populist, xenophobic bullshit appealed on a certain level to that culture. It was a ploy. It's a trap. And then the Soviets definitely responsible for some atrocious bullshit. But Soviets were kind of communist, which is different thing than socialism, strictly speaking. They are cousins, but not the same. Structures, importantly, distinctive. And then they also, like, most of the time, weren't really that either. Most of the time, they were just totalitarian, authoritarian, fucking empire in disguise. But, you know, politics is not what this channel's about. It's about like an art. All to say, though, I still use the Facebook because, you know, in the end, it's where the great unwashed masses cool our heels and share our shit and hold our event pages. And until we figure something else out, it's what there is. But you can do the MailChimp thing, and I don't sell your data, I just use it to tell you about when the next jam is. I don't think I've got that stuff turned off, but you can decide whether or not you let MailChimp share your crap. I think I have mine turned off. So I did it. I would definitely leave cookies and stuff in places. I'm not trying to hide my entire online footprint or something. I'm just saying I understand. And so, yes, in case anyone's wondering, this isn't a Day of the Dead thing, but when I thought of this visual, I think the character that I'm imagining created this is Latin roots, Hispanic specifically. I haven't really decided where specifically from, and I think for the purposes of the story, that level of granular detail for the character backgrounds isn't critical, but I may decide to further clarify it later. It's actually a largely silent, or I should say wordless, comic. There will be some, but not many. It's a visual story. And I think I might add flat tones. So think heavy metal, science fiction stuff, but crisper is kind of what I was aiming for. I don't know. It's going to actually really depend on how the first few pages look. I'm going to ink them like this, and then scan them and clean them up, and decide then whether any shading is necessary. So I switched to a thinner pen, and the plan is to use the lighter line in order to make this foreground larger forms pop a little bit better. And then just keep it a little simpler too. In these corners. Up in the molding, I'll add in more detail. But I just want to feel like we're seeing. Yeah, and there's going to be a cast shadow of the door frame. Yeah, that'll do it. I can beef that up just a tad. And here I can be a little cavalier because it's covered with the roses. But I should stop a minute, contemplate what I'm about to do before I do it where it's more visible. Yeah. See, I've already put the shadows in the top and bottom. I like it. This is what we wanted. You know, I don't mean to sound like this is coming from ego, but I've never quite gotten the psychology of people who just hate everything they do. I definitely always see how I could make it better. I'm never like just satisfied in the sense of like that was exactly what I wanted to do. I think it helps a little bit that I am aphantasic, so I don't have a vivid image in my head that I'm competing with. It takes some of the pressure off, I imagine. But I definitely am aware of areas that I want to work on or whatever. But very often, if I'm careful, I'm pretty pleased with the results I got. I do have, there's another psychological phenomenon for artists that I've heard many describe that I share, and that is when it goes real well and I step back and look at it, it feels like someone else did it. And that's not like some sort of sense of humility. Like, it's kind of a cool feeling when you know you did it, and then you look at it like, no, it's like, it feels like someone else did it, so it feels like the people who are able to do something I didn't think I was able to do yet did this, but here I am doing it, so I guess I am now where I am able to do this thing. And I think how you frame that can be a big, you don't want to let it go to your head, but it can be a good psychological boost, motivation. It's, I think, why people who really thrive in the arts do the things they do, because every once in a while they get to look at something and go, oh, shit, I did that. Nice. It's a feeling of accomplishment. Also, this is all about communication, and if you feel like you nailed something, you feel like you will have succeeded in getting an idea across to a viewer, to use as broad a term as I can. For me, it's a reader, right? But listener, audience, whatever. What we're trying to do as creators is share these ideas with our audience. So part of that buzz is, at least for me, like, yeah, nice. I think when people look at this, they're gonna get the point I was after. we go. I think I will put in, yeah. I don't think you guys can hear her, but maybe in the background you hear our little cat Scoogie begging for a door to be opened for her, not mine. I think she's harassing Angela. I hear Angela cooing back at her. The sounds of home. I think kind of Akira-ish is where I'm going with this. I think that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Something in that ballpark. Stylistically, by the way. And to an extent, the post-apocalyptic world that I plan to be drawing for the next 7 pages after this would fall into that genre. But there will also be body horror, which, hey, wait a minute, that's part of Akira too. Wait, what? It's actually pretty different than Akira story-wise, but yeah. Yep. That would be the right genre. I don't often put them at the top of my list when I talk about things that influenced me as a comic artist. But manga definitely is in there. It's I was a kid. I think there were some in the late 70s, but definitely in the 80s. A bunch of cool stuff got translated to English for the first time and published during the black and white boom. And I read quite a bit of it. I read, what's it called again? The Name Thing. It's The Name Thing. So I definitely read Lone Wolf and Cub when Frank Miller was putting that out, with first presenting it at First Comics, I think it was. But even before that, what was it called again? Freeman? Crying Freeman? I think it's Crying Freeman. Let me see. Is that it? Crying Freeman. Yes, Crying Freeman. I didn't read it, I didn't read all of it. I think I had 4 or 5 issues. I can't remember now. I feel like I didn't keep getting it, so I feel like it didn't stick over the long run, but I was really digging it for a few issues there, and the art was always striking and interesting. And but yeah, I mean, to be honest, I vaguely remember having to do with psych powers. What was the plot now? Assassins. That's right. Was it Dark Horse Comics ones? No, that was in the 2000s, so that's not when I read it. 86 to 88, Big Comics Spritz. Oh, no, Viz Media, there we go. North America, Viz Media Editions. Yes, that makes sense. I remember the Viz logo. And I remember there being mental powers. Or is it just that they're assassins? Well, anyway. It's a pretty cool looking comic. Definitely. If you were in one of those kids who was into comics because of just the cool pictures and wild ideas, less concerned with nuance, shall we say, and consistency in storytelling, then there were a lot of really neat things coming out. That wasn't a criticism of manga, by the way. It's just like generally comics are of that. I don't know, like very action-oriented, conspiracies, intrigue, violent. The plots are pretty simple. Let's be honest here. It ain't that subtle. So, that's fine if that's what you're looking for. I think I enjoyed them in spurts, but I would often lose interest and stop buying the books if the characters didn't do anything that was intriguing me too much. It happened really for most comics. For most of my early childhood when I was reading comics, I was very much a dilettante. I didn't get into like hardcore back bin diving and stuff in my youth in the 70s. I went to the grocery store and got whatever was on the rack. And I was lucky that some of this stuff was even showing up there. I also had access to underground comics. My father bought those, and we got heavy metal. So those were early influences. But I was also in... when I was really young, Kensington Market near Chinatown. And I know that that's partially why I was aware of manga even before I read them. And then later, I remember going by... Was it a comic shop? No. I can't remember what the shop was, but they had Crying Freeman in the window. And like, oh, that looks interesting. And I went in and got a couple issues. And then I think I grabbed a couple more next time I was there. I can't really remember what kind of shop that was. It must have been at least partially a comic shop. This was near where I house when I was a kid in Toronto Beaches. There were a couple of decent comic shops too. So you know what? It may have actually been at one of the dedicated comic shops. There was a Queen's Comics on King Street. I know. And Planet Earth Comics later on when I was a teenager. And I actually created a book with one of the owners called Nature of the Beast with Caliber Press. It's my first published credit during the black and white booms. I was a teenager when I started working on it. I think I was, by the time we got them coming out, I was 20. But yeah, that works. I wonder if I can... I'm just going to check. I'll check that out. It's a little more focus there. Can you see the difference? Oh yeah. Subtle, but there you go. Bob's your uncle. Oh, it's almost an hour. I should probably end this stream. Say, hey, yeah, reminder again. You know, I got a comic jam happening. Come check it out. It's part of FBDM, Festival of Montreal, otherwise known as MCAF in English. And what's a comic jam? Well, people sit around and someone starts a page with doing one panel, and they pass it to the next drunken sod, and that person adds a silly panel in response, and it gets passed around the table until it's all filled up. And usually, meanwhile, there's a lot of jaw wagging going on, chin scratching, boondoggling, socializing for cartoonists, with drawing, because we roll that way. And enthusiasts and amateurs are welcomed. It will be bilingual. I say this as someone who's actually pretty, as mentioned, crap in French, but I have taken pains to make sure that we have a number of co-hosts to help out with the moderating and explaining of things who are indeed properly bilingual, because I may be useless in French, but you, especially if you're a local Montrealer, probably aren't. And so we have to make sure we facilitate for that. And then there will be also folks like myself who are both French and English and just not too good in the other language. And they're going to be able to need to get help. Or how do you use the programs and stuff. So, got that covered. All are welcomed. Eventually, we're going to have to start having, Portuguese and Spanish speakers and Asian. Everything. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool, but I have no plans to make it that big. I'm just bullshitting. That sounds like a lot to run. It would be interesting, though. The whole idea is that we can use the breakout rooms, right? So if people want to create, we can also just have people bouncing around different languages. But if the group gets large enough, it gets to be where people can't really talk to each other because only one or two people can talk at a time. But then we can use breakout rooms, and folks can break off into tables and sit with their friends and hang out via the Zoom chat, and then pop in and out. We'll basically have as many breakout rooms as we can get moderators for a particular jam. So I've been able to arrange for, including myself, 5 so far, possibly more, for this upcoming jam. So that means that we can have that many potential breakout rooms, potentially. It's also might be a thing where if people are able, know the software enough already, with a group of friends, if they're willing to take on the responsibilities of being a co-host as well, I can give them some of that as the creator of the event, and they can be the rep for their group. It's definitely designed for the idea of a jam is for folks to hang out together, but there's a cap, I suspect, to how well that works with the Zoom software. And then, we're going to use aggie.io to do the drawing. That lets you just share. The pages become URLs, so you can share them. There's even a weird quirk I mentioned in my earlier clip that when you open a file someone else has started, often it's like not just upside down, but like at funny angles, and you have to use the rotate page feature. Just you put your key, the R key, and then drag it, and it'll drag into a rotation. And turn it around to face you. But that I like that for the jam, because it's something that happens when you're at a jam and you got to pick up a page. They're often sitting on a table whichever way, and you pick it up and turn it to look at it. And that ritual gets sort of recreated. I doubt it's by design, but maybe it is intentional by the Aggie software. It's basically like a stripped down, very basic drawing program. Has Photoshop style layers, has a decent amount of sensitivity for a brush if you're using a tablet or a screen like I do, drawing screen, drawing tablet, or a Wacom tablet. Both will work. Excuse me. Alrighty. It's about to be 1 hour. So, I will see you in the next time. I'm going to keep working, but in the meantime, be well, have fun, see you at the Comic Jam, and maybe catch my talk about cages and Journal Toi at FBDM on the 23rd, 5 p.m. Check out FBDM's channel in the text, in the doobly-doo, in the description below. Subscribe, bash the bell, get notified, smacked in the face a bit occasionally. I don't know, something like that. And have fun, and wash your hands.